So we had a question come in this morning for something they would like to see. The first was a question about X-rays and how I remember having this exact same thought that, hey, I'm working up this patient, I'm getting their history, I'm doing my exam, I have some ideas of what's going on, and I want to take an X-ray, but ECW says I have to assign a diagnosis first, and to me that also seemed like, oh, well, wait a minute, I'm not ready for that. But then I thought, well, I really don't use ECW to take my X-ray, so I can still just tell my assistant to take the X-ray. I also record my X-rays in the procedure section here, so I can put my X-ray report here, and I can do my X-ray report. And then if I want, I can make the last thing I do, order the X-ray. So yeah, the way the workflow is set up, you should have a diagnosis and then order your X-ray. But in the real life, no, you don't have to do that at all. You could just get your X-ray and write your report and then order it later. It doesn't matter. If you put your X-ray in a report in the procedure for the X-ray, which I think that some people do, then that's a challenge. So I have done that too. And let's say I'm suspicious of a fracture, I might use contusion as a diagnosis, and then assign my X-ray to that, just so I have a diagnosis. I frequently get X-rays for plantar fasciitis patients, so I have a template that has plantar fasciitis and an X-ray. Oh, sorry, I don't. That's on my list. I have post-op visit and an X-ray, so I have a post-op where I'm going to take a left 2 view, which is usually going to be DP and lat, and a right 2 view. So my template is very simple. Just has my post-op diagnosis and then ordering my X-ray and starting my X-ray report for me, so that when I want to do that, I can simply use my template and then go to my X-ray and fill out the rest of it. So there's a couple ways you can document your X-ray. If you like to put your X-ray report in the procedure itself, then I don't have a good answer for you. I think most people, when they do put it in the procedure, put it in notes, which I do not think is wrong. It's right there for you, and you can put it in notes. And there's lots of places you can put it in your notes. So you can put your X-ray report in here, and it will show up in your note there, and it will be I think a long paragraph, and it might take paragraph breaks and stuff if you wanted to put headings in and such, which I think you should, for I guess I say which you must, which would be a indication and a size and a view and your report and your impression. All of that has to be in your X-ray report, no matter where you put it. So the question again was, hey, I don't like to order I don't always like to order my X-ray before I know what's going on, and you certainly don't have to. There are several places you can document your X-ray report, but to get paid for it, you still have to order it, but you don't technically have to order it before you really do it in the real world. The other question that came in today was about past medical history review, and the question was, hey, do I have to review or add to the note or go through the medical history window to add the history to my note? I had not found a way other than going to medical history and history verified, and that will certainly add whatever medical history you have into your note. And Nick had informed me that you can use the arrow keys next to history, where I have this patient's medical history. You can use the arrow key, and it will add the history into your note. Let's take a look and see if it also simply checks the box. So it does not check the box, which I wonder if it has a MIPS requirement or not. So you can add it. You won't get the history verified box, and either Jen or Nick or Alicia, do you know, do you remember if that's a MIPS measure to verify the medical history? And if it is it a once a reporting period, or is it an every visit measure?
I don't think it's an actual requirement, but it's not a bad,
Yeah.
workflow to
So,
follow.
and we'll find out for sure, and I'll add it to this video before I post it if that information is incorrect. And again, if it is correct, I will edit this out so no one will know. So yes, you can add medical history using this arrow key here. I imagine you could also add these other histories with those other arrows. This test patient doesn't have a lot of stuff in it. Dr. Kibler, welcome.
Thanks, Mike.
Any questions? Yes, we can. Any questions? Anything we can do to help you as you get started? How is it going?
Great. Jennifer and Nick came down to the beach and got us implemented last week. So this is our first week flying solo. And so far, everything seems to be going on pretty well. Yeah, so I was going to make a couple of comments later on after you get through some things, just on some ideas that I had. But
you are welcome. You're welcome. I had a couple of email questions which we answered. Otherwise, you are our guest questioner.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I took your advice on one of the other recorded conference calls in the fact that adding diagnosis listings as your template would probably be a pretty good idea, and that templates could be a good place to add diagnosis because it couldn't be added to order set section.
Yeah.
So last night, or yesterday afternoon, I spent at least a good hour or so, hour and a half, putting in all of my common diagnoses that I use into the template section, and learned some very valuable lessons during that time that I was going to share. When I, yes, so you put in I put in a test patient, put in a diagnosis, put it as save as template, and it asks you at the end, hey, do you want to view this template? And I said, well, sure. So it takes you to T templates as the person, and it opens it up that, and then I'm like, all right, well, I'll do a few more.
Oh no,
and I just kept going and kept going and kept going, and it got completely screwed up because in the background it wanted me to do it on a real patient apparently, and so when I would hit what I thought was hallux valgus left, it was coming up with like idiopathic neuropathy somehow. And so I literally had to go back and erase everything and start from scratch and figure out that I literally had to kind of like go out of the screen, come back into the screen, go out of the screen, come back into the screen, and it seemed to work when I did that.
It is a little quirky for sure, and I have also overwritten templates several times and have the dents in the wall from my head as well. I think that even though I have been burned by the T templates not defaulting to ICD-9 several times, and it is slow as molasses, I still have done most of my templates that way because I just start from the template menu, whatever menu templates or menu EMR templates, and I start from there, and I start it by naming it first, and then and I go from there.
Excellent. And the other thing that I have not tackled yet was to be able to coordinate order sets to diagnoses. And I think that's going to be my next. I figured that I should make my templates first and then be able to go back and create order sets and then connect them to the order sets. Does that seem like that's the appropriate way to do it?
Yeah, I think it probably is, and I think that's usually done again by using the template menu. I made mine a favorite, I believe. So if I were to edit one of these templates, you can add an order set here. I have not done that. I do have a couple order sets that I've used, and order sets is another thing where, like we had just talked about ordering the X-ray, that you need to have a diagnosis to use an order set, except if you go under treatment, you can use this NA other order set and pick an order set. Otherwise, you have to have a diagnosis already, because when you try to use the order set without a diagnosis, it does not work.
Right.
And I only have a couple order sets, and I haven't gotten yet into a great habit in using them, but I've been working with some of them, and I also am going to associate some too, but except that I'm unsure how and where that'll save me time, but that'll be something I will practice with too. The order sets are funny because it really only lets you do a limited amount of things compared to a template, and that's frustrating.
But would one of the advantages of an order set being that you can just pick and choose very easily, whereas a template, you're kind of locked into what you have in the template unless you want to sit there and start erasing or deleting things out of your template?
Absolutely, and absolutely. That is true. That order set is like a menu, right? And the template is a fixed. So I think a great place for order sets is medicines, right? Because we probably use 10 to 12 medicines 80% of the time. And I think even though I think the favorites in medicines is one of the better favorites implementations of ECW, I still think I just haven't gotten into the habit yet of that picking a medicine from a template or from an order set is probably a really handy thing to do, as well as X-rays. I think I have at least one, if not a couple, templates that have an X-ray, like Postops. But I think that if I could get into the habit of using an order set for X-rays, I think that's a great place to use it, where you use the same thing for multiple diagnoses. I think that's a much better use for an order set. And I just need to get into a little more of a habit. I'm getting to the point now where my habits are getting really ingrained. So teaching an old dog new trick is getting a little harder, but I'd like to force myself onto that a little bit. Howdy, Dr. McDonald.
Hi, can you hear me?
We sure can.
I think it's working pretty good for me.
That's great.
Couple of the issues we have are the staff entering in the information in a quick manner so we can get the patients back without a long wait. I'm sure you have an excellent solution for that.
We've used both the carrot and the stick, and right now I'm in favor of the stick. No, that took a while, and it took a while for us to get quicker at that, and it frustrated me for a couple of weeks, if not 6 of them. But it is certainly much better, and especially now when everybody is quote unquote new, right? It is just a little mini nightmare. But it has gotten a lot better, and we talked and worked on this for a long time. But once everybody's not a new patient, it makes a huge improvement.
Another thing I was just curious how you guys did was with X-rays. I have the classic view, so to speak, and I can have a normal X-ray. but are you just basically quick texting in your chief findings? You know, if they have a fracture, if they have a tumor, if they have a bunion, is that how you're making your X-ray report accurate?
Yes, I use a lot of text expander for X-rays, both for little phrases that I use a lot, like a plantar calcaneal spur or a posterior canalial spur, and for evaluations, like when I have a bunion, I will fire off a text expander that asks me the intermetatarsal angle and the other things that I am going to enter in there. And then occasionally, if something's really weird, I'm going to free text it. I do text expander all of like the left foot, right foot, and I have a ton of indications to pick from. So I use this a lot, and I will use views for me, so X views, and so most of mine are those three, or this one, or this one, but I have a bunch, because if I'm going to do an ankle, it's going to be this one. And then because I don't take my hands off the keyboard a lot, I will tab 3 times to the next button and hit the space bar, and then these are my indications, which I text expander as well, XI for indications. Heel pain is the one I take X-rays of a ton, so luckily for me, that's the first one. But if I have, an injury, I might add that and then put in patient fell off a ladder, whatever, or all sorts of things. If I have a painful bunion, I'll use that. What I've gotten into a lot recently is I'll use postoperative radiographs, and then I'll say something like evaluate for transition to sneaker. Because I'll frequently take X-rays right before I'm going to do that, or, evaluate for return to, full activity or something like that. And then I'll tab and hit the space bar. And here, this is what I'll do. I'll do this. And mine always start with this bone stock. And then, the foot type that it is. And then, if there's a spur, or there's that, or there's a bunion. Oh, and I'm going to use all this.
Are you actually measuring the metatarsus adductus angle? Wow.
I use angles angle, which is the second met and the intermediate cuneiform.
Great.
So I text expander, all of that kind of stuff. So that's how I do my X-rays.
Okay. A couple points. Number one, as the head of the EAMR committee, the Scribe is not the most accurate dictation system in the world. I'm not sure if eClinical did that or whatever, but there's a lot of errors. I know my diction is not the best, but I believe that it's not as good as it could be. Do you do diabetic shoes, Mike?
We do. We have a guy from OHI that comes to our office for $55 an hour, and he comes about every other week or so, and he does all of our diabetic shoes and braces.
So does he do the notes?
He does.
Okay.
Most of it is sure script type stuff.
So I put it together, a template for diabetic shoes, and everything's great, except I keep forgetting to put in the exact diagnosis because, it could be diabetic with circulation problems. It could be diabetic with amputation. It could be diabetic with neuropathy. And so I'm getting probably about once a month or, maybe once every 2 weeks, I'll get a note back from Sharice and my biller saying you forgot to put in the diagnosis. I guess you don't have to worry about that because you have him doing it.
Right. Where do you forget to put the diagnosis?
Underneath the assessment. Because my template mostly does the plan and the billing.
and it puts the billing in without any diagnosis associated with it.
I have to go back and look, but I think I have to. If I don't add the diagnosis, it's a problem.
Why don't you update your template and create a couple? One for diabetes with PVD, one for diabetes and neuropathy and foot deformity, and whatever your most common 3, 4, or 5 are, and then have another one that's called no diagnosis. And when you click it, maybe it'll remind you.
That makes sense.
But if you
a lot of times what I'm getting with diabetes is are they on insulin or are they not? And then there's quite a few different subsets there.
Yeah, but that's okay. It's the same code, right? Unless you use diabetes with kidney failure is different than diabetes with neuropathy, but diabetes with peripheral vascular disease with insulin and without insulin, aren't they not the same code, or are they the same code?
I'd have to go back and look.
I think they are. Well, hold on. Let's look right here. E1151. I don't know why I haven't memorized this in years. So with E1151, without E11, it's the same diagnosis. Only thing with does is when you add it, it says I'm going to add this other diagnosis. That's what that little plus means.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same code, right? So
I could do one insulin dependent, one non-insulin dependent.
You sure could. You sure could. So yes, let's say we want our codes to be as accurate and complete as we can possibly make them. But let's also say that when these claims go to Medicare with electronically, they have E11.51, and that's it. So yes, you could make a duplicate of each one with and without, or you could not and use the same one.
I would say most of the time when I'm doing diabetic shoes, it's not a patient with gangrene.
Correct. So you could, yeah. So, but that's still with peripheral angiopathy without gangrene, with insulin or without insulin, but they are both the same code.
Yes, sir.
So yes, you want your documentation to be accurate, but for this simple claim that is really not related much to treatment, but just for billing, I'm not sure how much sleep I'd lose over that. But it's not hard to create the templates. If you have four common diagnoses, you make 8 templates and one that says no diagnosis. So you'll have most of what you need most of the time.
Yep. And then, since nobody else wants to ask any questions.
I think you're it, man. We're good.
I will tell you that it's slightly annoying. I've worked hard to X out my labs or whatever, but it seems like my labs are getting posted in 2 places, and I was told that if I hit a certain button, they would go. One time I would make them both go away, but it hasn't really been the case.
So if as long as we're talking about the way the labs that go to our InStride lab work, you don't use any other labs. We don't have any other lab interface. So it must be.
If I ever use a different lab, it's rare. These are all like pathology specimens, basically.
So I don't have any right now. All of my document bubbles, these are all came. For some reason, it says scanned. So I don't know if these came.
When you look at your, I guess you call it the dashboard or whatever, and you don't want to see any red T's, and you've got some. You go to S for the schedule, but then I've got when it's E, that's usually a prescription, right? But then I've got L's and I've got something else that shows up that both have LabWorks attached, and it's the same names. Yeah,
it's the D and the L.
Yeah.
So if you have, I'll do this one. So if you go to one of those patients where you have the name in both places in the D jelly bean, not in the L jelly bean,
Yep.
All right, so I'm going and I'm looking, okay, this is a dystrophic nail plate. I understand. Yep. And what I will do is I will say negative fungal stain. We will talk with this patient when they come in for their results. Now,
nice.
If I click this one that says reviewed doc and lab.
Yep.
And then hit next, reviewed or just next. Now, okay, now the next patient comes up. So now if I go back and I refresh my jelly beans with the little refresh button here, yep. One of your D jelly beans and one of your L jelly beans should have gone away.
Okay. And when you did that, when you saw there was dystrophic nail and you clicked on the little box next to the, what was that? Was that key phrases or was that a template or what was that?
Yep. So here's another one. This one looks like this one is a positive fungal stain. I frequently, I don't know why I didn't the last time, but I will frequently put my signature on it too. And I will a lot of times put text in here. It really depends. MRIs, I will. Other things, I will. Will review with patient at their visit. So I'll frequently write on this. But the other thing I will do is I will go in this description, and you got to hit this button here.
Yep.
And then you could type some notes in here. And I've just made a bunch of these.
But how'd you make a bunch of those?
I hit this new plus button.
Okay.
And then I said, we'll call it, whatever. And I put whatever I wanted down here. So for this one, this was a positive fungal stain. So I've made this one that says positive single review with the patient next visit. No need for early follow-up, meaning I don't need to call them, tell them they have fungus in their nails. It's not urgent. And I hit OK, and that puts that in. So I have just made a bunch of them that I use from time to time. And then it's this button, reviewed document and lab. So it reviews this document, which is the same thing as what I think this button does, but it reviews the document and the lab that you have in your L jelly bean. So you do that, it hits both.
Okay. I'll have to check that out, Mike. It might have been, I just had a bad day and clicked the wrong box or something, but
or if you do if you do the L first, then I don't think the D goes away. So do the D first.
D first. Okay. Yep. D comes before
and
L.
Dr. McDonald, this is Jennifer. Because it has come up in the past where sometimes jelly beans didn't work quite the way they were supposed to. If you ever have an instance where you review doc and lab and then refresh your jelly beans and they don't both go away, let me, Nick, and Lisa know, and then we'll make sure that your jelly bean settings are right. So, because that button should be clearing them both out. But if it ever doesn't, we'll definitely help you on the back end to see what's going on.
Okay.
So thanks very much, and we'll talk with you all again next time.